The Crow City of Angels is the sequel to the cult hit The Crow, starring Brandon Lee, his last film as he died during filmmaking. The Crow was based off of a graphic novel by James O'Barr that got many sequels, but instead of following the same story or characters, he was always a different dead person that the Crow guides back to Earth to enact revenge. Basically, you could do anything with this concept as long as you have a murdered person, a crow, a cat, and some face paint, you got a Crow comic. City of Angels isn't based on any particular Crow book, though one based on the movie came out. Like the graphic novels, it's an original story that uses the same concept. This time, our murdered man is Ash Corvin, played by Vincent Perez. Him and his son Danny were murdered by thugs working for a drug lord named Judah, who has all but taken over Los Angeles sometime in the vaguely near future. The only character from the first movie that's here is Sarah, who is now an adult working as a tattoo artist in the City of Angels. Perhaps due to her past connection with the Crow and Eric Draven, she's drawn to the site of the next resurrection and helps Ash acclimate to being undead and does the face paint thing for him, which is a slightly different design this time. Ash goes after the motley crew of evil assholes with jolly pirate nicknames and kills them all in creative ways before having to face Judah. However, Judah, like Top Dollar from the first film, learns that the Crow is his source of power. Though instead of just shooting it like Top Dollar did, he crucifies the bird and drinks its blood, not only stealing Ash's powers away, but gaining them for himself, making him a formidable foe. Sarah and Ash also seem to have a bit of a love connection going on, despite him being an undead revenant out to murder some people. I guess she finds that hot. After all, her very first strong male role model that she had in her life was killed and then came back to life to kill people. I guess that makes sense. Perez's performance is very different from Lee's. Instead of being brooding, he's sort of manic and deals with his grief by smashing things and screaming. It's pretty fun to watch. The cast of idiots for him to kill include the Yellow Power Ranger, Iggy Pop, and Thomas Jane as a chronic masturbator. Man, I didn't know who he was back in the 90s, but watching this film again for the feature, I saw Thomas Jane's name in the opening credits, and I was like, wow, Thomas Jane was in this movie. I never knew that. But at the end, I still didn't know who he was, so I had to look it up. He was Nemo, the creepy little dude who goes to sex booths and jerks off to the girls. That's hilarious. So how does this one stack up to the original? Well, in some ways, especially the visual direction and the sets, it's far superior to the original, but the problem is the movie was butchered. If you watch it, you'll notice that it really doesn't have an ending. After Ash kills Judah, a bunch of music starts playing, and there's a scene of him on a motorcycle, but then that cuts directly to him walking with his son, and then the credits. Apparently, the ending wasn't liked by the producers, so they cut it out completely and cobbled together random cut scenes to make it seem like the movie had an ending. So much of the movie was cut or altered that it barely makes any sense, and you only get hints at greatness. This is a real shame, because this one had all the potential to be superior to the original, but what we got was a butchered mess of a film, which is still worth watching for the performances of Vincent Perez and Richard Brooks as Judah, and, as I mentioned, the visual direction of the film is excellent, but mostly this was disappointing. You have to contend with the haphazard editing and the fact that the movie literally does not have an ending. And I think this film might have invented the shaky camera. Oh well. After this movie, they made a TV show called The Crow Stairway to Heaven, which had the same characters as the first movie and was sort of a serialized version of the comic book. And then there were 2 more movies, which I haven't seen. Maybe I'll watch and review those someday. Anyway, The Crow City of Angels is worth a look despite being flawed, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.